8 months ago, my husband William blindsided me with the news that he had impregnated his mistress, and thus, we needed to separate. He delivered this life-altering message casually, leaving me completely shocked and drained of any feelings I once had for him. "Is the mistress someone I know?" I asked. "Yes, it's Elizabeth. You met her at Nova's wedding reception," he replied. The revelation stung even more knowing the affair had been ongoing since Nova's wedding, which was almost 3 years ago. Nova, a college friend of mine, and Elizabeth, a junior from our days at university, were both part of the same research group. I remembered Elizabeth. She was the one we all called Little Devil behind her back, a nickname that seemed all too apt now. Reflecting on the past, I realized how unashamed William had been. Time indeed flies, and so has my husband's integrity, it seemed. I am Mia, 31 years old. I met William through the college tennis club where he, being 4 years my senior and an alumnus, would often return to mingle. He was charismatic, always surrounded by friends, and particularly attentive to the newcomers, especially the girls. His friendly nature had charmed me, but it became clear after we married that his kindness was not as all-encompassing as I had believed. William's true nature slowly unveiled itself once I began working. The reason he spent so much time at the tennis club wasn't out of some alumni loyalty. It was because he was largely overlooked at his job due to his incompetence. He lacked serious responsibilities, which gave him ample free time, and there was no sign of any career advancement on his horizon. I had hoped marriage would change him, but his persistent refusal to grow forced me to give up. The only reason I hadn't pursued a divorce sooner was out of respect for his genuinely decent parents. Now, facing the reality of his infidelity and the impending arrival of a child from that betrayal, William proposed a quick separation. "You can keep the apartment. I'll leave," he said with a dismissive ease that only fueled my resolve. As I approached my 40s, the desire for a child of my own grew stronger, contrasting sharply with the life I was currently leading. Earning more than my aimless husband, I was more than capable of supporting myself. It was clear that this painful revelation was not just the end of our marriage, but an unexpected push toward a new beginning for me. At my company, we had excellent parental and maternity leave policies, which made me feel ready to start a family. However, despite my readiness, having a baby just wasn't happening, and the emotional toll was significant. To make matters worse, my affection for my husband had evaporated after discovering his affair and the pregnancy that resulted from it. I was determined to end our marriage cleanly and permanently. The fact that my husband didn't even apologize for his actions only fueled my anger. He laid out his needs and demands without a hint of regret, making it clear that our long-standing relationship needed to end. My next steps were straightforward: hire a lawyer, seek compensation, and begin the property division process. I was also prepared to involve Elizabeth in the legal proceedings. But I don't have that kind of savings, and Elizabeth's pregnant. I don't want to stress her out, my husband protested weakly. "Well, then, you should take on the debt yourself. It's your affair that's led us here, so you need to take full responsibility," I countered firmly. Faced with my resolute stance, he eventually conceded, suggesting he might ask his father to help with the debts. As I moved forward with the divorce, my in-laws intervened, calling me repeatedly to plead for reconciliation. My father-in-law even broke down, fearing for his son's future without me, while my mother-in-law treated me with affection, imploring me to reconsider as she loved me like her own daughter. However, after laying bare the extent of my husband's infidelities and his general irresponsibility at home, even they came to understand my decision. "We are truly sorry," they admitted, their disappointment evident. They ended up paying the compensation on behalf of their son, who lacked the funds himself, and sternly warned him not to depend on them financially again. I often wondered how such responsible and decent parents could have raised a son who turned out so carelessly irresponsible. Following the divorce, I moved back to my recently relocated family home. The process, which I had anticipated to be a hassle, concluded more swiftly than expected. Half a year passed, and life settled into a new rhythm of work and home responsibilities. Then one day, my friend Nova called, clearly upset. "Mia, did you hear? Your ex-husband William and Elizabeth are now flaunting their new life in a high-rise apartment. And get this, Elizabeth invited me to a lavish baby shower, where gifts are expected to be over $200 and there's a hefty entry fee too. Can you believe that? She exclaimed. I hadn't even known that Elizabeth had given birth. The news was a shock, but it also reaffirmed my decision to leave that chapter of my life firmly in the past. I was baffled when Nova told me that Elizabeth had invited her to the baby shower. It made no sense. Both my ex-husband, William, and Elizabeth knew that Nova was my closest friend. Why would Elizabeth reach out to her, knowing full well that Nova would share everything with me? As I shared my confusion, Nova's frustration boiled over. She did it deliberately. That awful woman actually gloated to me, saying she's so happy now that you and William split. She's the worst, Nova fumed, eager to confront Elizabeth about her manipulative behavior. Elizabeth, who we used to call the little devil back in our college days, seemed to have evolved into something far more sinister. In college, she had a reputation for meddling in relationships, unfazed even if her actions caused couples to argue or split. She'd claim with a smirk that if a relationship could be shaken by another person's interest, it wasn't true love to begin with. Reflecting on this, I felt sorry for Elizabeth, pitying her for never having experienced genuine love. However, I was wise enough not to engage with her directly. For now, I chose to keep my distance. My main concern wasn't Elizabeth. It was avoiding any awkward encounters. Nova then mentioned something about the high-rise where William and Elizabeth were living. It's the only new one around. Did you hear when they moved in? She asked. They just got lucky recently when a spot opened up. Someone had to relocate for work right after buying an apartment there, Nova explained. That made sense. As we continued talking, Nova reminded me, Mia, you're moving this Sunday, right? The baby shower is on Saturday, so you just need to be cautious for one day. The building has plenty of elevators, and the entrances are different. We've never run into each other, so it should be fine. However, despite our best-laid plans, I unexpectedly bumped into William and Elizabeth in the elevator hall on the first floor. They were stepping out just as I arrived to wait for the elevator. Our eyes locked. There was no avoiding them now. Hey, Mia, what are you doing here? William broke the silence first. Elizabeth quickly added, with a falsely cheerful tone, Mia, are you here to celebrate with us? You wanted to see our adorable baby, didn't you? Her smile was bright, but her eyes betrayed her insincerity. Flustered by their presumptuousness, I replied, No, I'm just here for the elevator. I switched to a more formal tone, trying to maintain decorum in an awkward situation. To me, William was no longer someone I knew, but a stranger connected to a past I wanted to forget. I didn't want to escalate the situation into a scene. So, you're planning to come to my house after all?
You are so silly, Mia.
Stop being so stubborn. You're probably just jealous that we live in this super luxurious high-rise and that our adorable prince was born. You still love me and feel lonely, don't you? Just admit it. You wanted to see me again, William said, provoking me with his assumptions. Elizabeth chimed in, her tone patronizing. Mia, that's not acceptable, no matter how much you love William. I'm the one he's married to now. It's a crime to barge into our home uninvited. Are you jealous, Elizabeth? You're really cute. So sorry, Mia, but Elizabeth and our prince are a priority now, so you're not welcome here. It had been 8 months since I had seen my ex-husband, and his delusions were as grandiose as ever. Elizabeth, too, seemed utterly incomprehensible. They were indeed a match made in a peculiar kind of heaven. I lamented the years I had spent with William during my 20s, feeling utterly ashamed of having dated and married him. If I had left him sooner, I wouldn't be subjected to this absurd dialogue. My silence seemed to irritate William further. What's that? You're really lacking the charm. Learn from Elizabeth. Even her jealousy is cute. She's just given birth, but still makes the effort to look stylish for me. Don't you think she's admirable? Aren't you embarrassed to be wearing such cheap clothes and no makeup? Not embarrassed at all. I was just going to the grocery store, I replied, my tone calm. I was dressed simply in a clean white t-shirt and jeans. Nothing fancy, but perfectly suitable for a casual errand. That's exactly the problem. That's why I grew tired of you. Enough already. We have nothing to do with each other. Just go home, William dismissed, waving his hand dismissively. Annoyed by my indifferent response, he continued as if shooing away an unwanted pet. No, this is actually my house. That's why I was waiting for the elevator. I corrected him firmly.
What?
Seriously? You're lying, right, Mia? That joke isn't funny at all, Elizabeth said, her expression a mix of confusion and disbelief. I had no choice but to clarify. I've been living with my parents in this high-rise for 8 months now. My father was approached by the salespeople when there was talk of selling the land he owns here. They told him that living in a high-rise would be more convenient than a single-family home, especially as he's getting older. Their stunned faces confirmed they hadn't expected this twist. Living in the same building as them was the last thing they thought possible, and yet, here I was, completely legitimate in my presence, turning their assumptions on their heads. Although the entire ground of the high-rise wasn't originally our land, my family owned a significant portion of it. During the negotiations for the sale, we managed to secure a unit on one of the higher floors for far less than the market value. This revelation shocked William. You are landowners with that much money? If I'd known, I wouldn't have broken up with you. Give me back the compensation money. There was no need for a property settlement, was there? He exclaimed, grasping at straws. That's a separate matter, I replied coolly. The compensation was for your affair, and the property settlement was because we were married. They're not connected. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Elizabeth mumbling to herself, incredulous. I can't believe Mia is living in a high-rise. I thought I had totally won, she muttered under her breath, before glaring at me and snapping. But Mia, you don't have a baby or a loving partner, do you? I haven't lost yet. Look, I was never competing with you, Elizabeth. I'm thankful to you for giving me the chance to break up with William. Oh, and I'm moving out of my parents' place tomorrow, so I don't think we'll be seeing each other again. I informed them, closing the topic.
What? Why?
You just moved into a high-rise, both exclaimed, taken aback. I shrugged. Maybe it's a matter of different values. It just wasn't a good fit for my family. I explained that living in a high-rise came with challenges that didn't suit our lifestyle. We couldn't hang our laundry outside to dry in the natural sunlight and wind, which my mother and I preferred over using a dryer. The higher floors lacked balconies for safety reasons, and only a few windows could open. Additionally, the intense sunlight made our apartment unbearably hot, even with the air conditioning on. The building swayed noticeably even during minor earthquakes, a safety feature meant to prevent collapse, but nonetheless terrifying. Most stressful of all was the crowded elevator rides during the morning commute, which took longer since the elevator stopped on every floor. We decided to move back to a regular house with a garden, I concluded. Luckily, we were able to sell the apartment quickly for nearly the same price we paid for it. Both William and Elizabeth smirked at this news. Oh, so we'll never see each other again? So a high-rise wasn't suitable for commoners like you. It's more suited for an elite celebrity family like mine, William remarked smugly. I couldn't fathom how he reached such a conclusion, but it mattered little to me. His words reflected his unchanged, arrogant nature and reaffirmed my decision to move on from that chapter in my life. The simple truth was that our values and needs were vastly different, and I was content with my choices, unswayed by his shallow judgments. As I stepped into the elevator that had just arrived, I faced my ex-husband, delivering his own words back to him. It was a pivotal moment, a release from the pretentiousness he embodied without the substance to back it up. He was unwilling to change, and I had grown utterly tired of his empty promises and lack of effort. With a deep breath, I felt a sense of closure. It was clear he was beyond changing, and it was time for me to say goodbye. As the doors began to close, I glanced at Elizabeth Hills, who stood beside my astonished ex-husband. In one final jab, I questioned, "By the way, are you sure the child is really yours?" My ex-husband, completely taken aback, could only muster a confused look. "What do you mean?" he stammered. I replied, simply but pointedly, exactly what I said. "Right, Elizabeth? You know what I mean." The doors closed, leaving the aftermath unseen. In truth, During our struggles to conceive, I had undergone medical tests, all of which indicated no issues on my side. I began to suspect the problem might lie with him, but he stubbornly refused to be tested. This was the last straw for me, prompting my departure. Later, I heard from a friend who attended Elizabeth's baby shower. Despite boasting about living in a luxury high-rise, they were actually on the third floor of an average building. Moreover, they had the audacity to demand expensive gifts and participation fees, only to serve cheap snacks. When a guest complained, Elizabeth lashed out, insisting everyone should be grateful just to attend. The situation escalated when my ex-husband tried to intervene, resulting in a heated argument and a chaotic scene, all sparked by my parting words. It turns out they were facing financial difficulties and had resorted to deceit to extract money from friends. The revelation caused outrage, and many friends left the gathering in disgust. As for me, I've moved on to a peaceful life in a single-family home with a garden, enjoying my days with my family and a new, adorable kitten. Our former high-rise was later found to be riddled with structural defects and illegal construction methods, making headlines daily. This news confirmed our timely escape from potential disaster. Now, as I fold the sun-warmed laundry with my kitten occasionally napping on the fresh clothes, I cherish these simple, peaceful moments. Each day confirms my good fortune and contentment, far removed from the turmoil of my past life. Today, like every other, is a good day.